Yo, what up, my gamers? Today we are going to learn how to do an actual full digital illustration. I'm going to teach you like the basics, my favorite pens to use, and even warm-ups. This is basically how it's going to go down. Yes. Okay, let's start. Absolute first thing you want to do is open up your program. I use Procreate, but you can use anything you want. Keep in mind that this is a digital drawing tutorial. The first little tip is change the color of your background and dim it. This will save your eyes and your soul in the future. It makes it more of a vibe and it just makes it a cooler color. If you're going to be painting or something, I'd recommend a darker mid-tone, and it will help you get the colors more accurate than bright or too dark. I like a little toned background myself. Let's go for a soft blue today. Then you're going to want to start up by doing warm-ups, like lines, circles, ellipses, and squares. That's just for starters though. You can start to improve your lines by learning to make long, confident strokes from place to place. And just practicing that. And then boxes. It's like a beautiful three-way thing. You draw your square, whatever, and then you make it into a box. When drawing boxes, always remember to have the lines diverge in an obtuse angle, sort of, towards each other. That way it proves that it's in a 3D space. These aren't going to be perfect or anything, it's just a warm-up. So once you got that, you're going to want to do an X, where it lines up at all the edges of your box beautifully, and a circle matching the perspective. And that's like a 3-in-1 way to warm up. So now, let's get on. Once you have an idea of what you want to draw or paint or sketch, you're going to think of composition, you've got to think of color, you've got to think of design, all these little things. But to start out, I'd recommend just sketching a loose little rule of thirds onto the page to find out where it would be juicy to place things, whatever. Cheese here, flour there, who knows. Just to plan out your little sketch. Or if you're doing a portrait or something, always start out with a good construction. So if you want to draw a portrait, you'd start out with basic shapes and whatever. Basically, do it however you're comfortable to start out with to get used to your program if you're not yet. But if you are, yeah, just remember to always start out with construction. And another really, really important step is to use reference. I've got loads of little Pinterest boards of cool ideas, don't look too hard at those, of stuff that I think is cool as heck and I want to draw. It can be anything, just what you're passionate about. Make sure it's something that inspires you or like sparks an idea in your mind, and take inspiration from it. And then when you actually do start drawing, often it's better drawing from life, but come on, we're digital artists. No way I'm gonna look up from my screen constantly, fuck no. So we're gonna just observe reference and get going with that. Oh yeah. Now I've already started an illustration that I'm gonna use to guide you today, and it's gonna be of Moomin, the 90s little like cartoon character. He's cute as heck. Moomin, the Moomins, ba 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 ba. And so I did the rule of thirds and I sketched out a little plan. This is just a loose idea. Then I did a second, more defined sketch where I got the details, what I wanted down, the pose, how the lines would work. This isn't the final sketch either. I like to do maybe 2 or 3 if I'm doing a proper art. This is the final sketch that I'm going to be basing off of the first sketch, and then I'd line art it. Or if I really like the first sketch, then I'd just start with the sketch. I wouldn't bother even line arting it. I'd just get on there, you know, get in the vibe, arting. Let's say that this is going to be your line art. You'd want to make the outline bit, like the details outlining the form, thicker than the little details on the inside. Like, my lines aren't perfect right now because I'm trying to film, but woo, Moomin. Just before we get started, let me let you know some tips. As you go on, do make sure you use layers so you can draw on top of another thing. I've seen so many beginners not know what layers are, and I did it too as a beginner. I just draw my art and then be like, I don't want to use layers. It's dumb. Look, I can just fill it in. Yeah, there's gaps, but no one sees them. We can all see them. When you do use layers, there's many options on how to fill your art. Like using selection, it's literally one of my funnest things to do. Like it's like a challenge. Can you perfectly get around it without gaps? Ah! Oh yeah. You can also duplicate the original and just fill that in, and then, you know, work around it. Just get in there and just be able to affect this layer without killing the other layer, you know? Or just color it by hand, but I don't think many of us want to subject ourselves to such torture. Now I suggest always starting the background before adding your beautiful character, so then you know where to put that gorgeous, schmexy ambient lighting. Oh yeah, we need some moonlight in this, come on. Another really important thing is grouping your layers and even naming them, because it's useful as heck. Oh yeah. By the way, my favorite brushes to use are the 6B pencil that comes with Procreate, and my favorite inking pencil is Studio Pen. And yeah, I keep it simple. Always keep your brushes simple. There's so many like goofy options that it can distract you, but just know like 2 or 3 brushes you're comfortable with and really like, and get to know them well. Okay, now you've got your line art, you're going to want to start coloring. So you can either start this by finding color palettes you like, or learning a juicy little bit of color theory. I recommend doing a bit of both, and always just remembering your reference. Like now I just select a nice color for maybe the grass, and yeah. Now once you've got your colors going on, we're going to start with lighting, shading, rendering. Woo! A fun, lazy way for doing it is going to layers and selecting multiply, and then select it around your art alpha log if it's not all one thing, and get on there, select a juicy darker color of purple maybe, and just get on there. It'll automatically have it a darker color for you, and you can then lower the opacity. You've got to keep some important things in mind first though. First thing you've got to keep in mind is the light source. So it's gonna, let's say the sun is just above our little moon here. You can draw yourself an indicator, like a little dot or whatever, who knows, just to show like, oh yeah, the light's up here, and you keep that in mind for the whole form. So you go back to your darker purpley color, and yeah, the sun's above, so there'd be shadow under the little arms. Whatevs, I'm doing this a little roughly, but it's just to show you. There'd probably be a little shadow here on the knee. Make sure you use big, lovely shapes that are noticeable and have a nice contrast with the form. Once you've got the shadows in there, you can start to tweak the colors a little bit to make it really fit the vibe. Maybe higher or raise the saturation or lower it, depending. Just feel it out. I also like to use these settings for the colors all over. Just balance out the colors, but this is also to be done at the end. It's one of the end stages, which I really love. I'll show you in a bit. Some shading tips are, when you want to go deeper into the shadow, you should lean towards bluer, darker colors, and so that if that would be a way to deepen the shadow, but it's not, so we're not going there. And if you want to lean towards highlights, you'd go to a more lighter, yellower color. So blue, shadow, yellow, light. It's simple as that, and that way you could add like nice little highlights and whatevs. If you want a tip to make the shadows really juicy, you'd take the color that is the shadow and you'd go a little darker with it and a bit more saturated. As long as it's darker and more saturated than the surrounding color, it'll just make it really pop. Since I was using a Moomin, it wasn't red, but with skin, it's usually going to be a more vibrant, redder color. Just remember while making art, also remember to appreciate the beauty around. Now it's time for one of my favorite bits, is final touches. So make sure you duplicate all your layers to keep them safe when adding final touches, because you never know what you like and what you want in the end. Bits such as like saturation, which is the intensity of the colors, brightness, which is how bright or dark the artwork will be, and like hue, which is basically color variations. An extra little tip for this is to put on reference, so you have your artwork in a small little window at the side. Mine's on sideways, but Procreate's weird like that sometimes. It can still help to see like what the artwork will look from afar, because that's usually how people will be seeing it, and you don't want there to be focusing on little details that don't really matter. Other little effects I'd like to add are sharpen, where I sharpen it a little bit. Like, it's not too noticeable, but it gives it that crispy feel that I feel cannot be obtained any other way. And also chromatic aberration. You don't use the first setting it's on usually. Perspective is not nearly as nice as displace. Then I'd usually zoom in on a little bit that has color and just the tiniest bit. Do it. I would also like this artwork to have a more retro feel, so I'm gonna get a layer and set it to overlay. And I'm gonna fill it with a kind of darkish, grayer kind of color, bit toned like that. And then we're gonna go to noise and put it over. Like, you can also draw it on directly or put it on, literally anything else like a brush, but I think this is one of the best methods to have like pretty editable noise that you can sharpen up and do whatever you want with. If you find there's ever a little mistake, like an out of place color, I recommend just smudging it out on a high opacity. And it's the best way to solve it, being careful not to smudge the surrounding colors. And then you've got your finished art. I usually like to export it in as a PNG, and then I like to post it on my socials. And in that post, I'd usually like to add little sketches and memes and goofy stuff that I did along the way, and other side artworks, just to keep it interesting. Yippee! And there you go. There's so much fun stuff you can do while making art. You can join Art Fight and make illustrations for others. You can join maps. You can do commissions. You can do anything you want. Even make little gifts for friends and family. So yeah, I hope you have fun creating. I hope this could help someone. And I'll see you the next time. Mwah!